you.
Hello, this is Arna Sigurðsson calling in from U.S. Embassy Reykjavik. Thanks for having us all here tonight. I think I'm being joined by a couple of colleagues from Iceland that are representing the Westfjords region, East Iceland, and then the Reykjavik area. So in short, and I know you have a long agenda ahead of you, U.S. Embassy Reykjavik noticed, and through a partnership with DOE over the years, we noticed the DOE's Twin Cities, Hydrogen Twin Cities initiative was being advertised, and we are fortunate to have good friends at the DOE's international office and the Arctic Energy Office, Mike Laney and George Rowe. So we started about a year ago to take a look at this a little bit further, and we noticed that we might have potential actors in Iceland that would fit the so-called mentor-mentee partnership. And we were able to recruit the Westfjords of Iceland, that is not the biggest population of Iceland, more or less 7,000 people. And then on the east side, we also had another municipality called Fjarðabyggð that was able to sign up. Well, long story short, due to other issues in Ukraine and with all hands on deck, not much happened. So we didn't really get any matches down the road. So we decided after George Rowe came out to Iceland in the fall to participate in an international Arctic Energy Conference that maybe we could look at this initiative from a regional point of view by pairing the Westfjords of Iceland with rural areas of Alaska versus the Reykjavik city with the so-called Fairbanks Anchorage area, often called the Alaska Rail Belt area. So based on that initial discussion, brainstorming session in Reykjavik this fall, it was suggested that joining the Alaska Hydrogen Working Group sessions might be a good starting point to see if those programs would be a good fit, in the mentor-mentee partnership, sort of to see if Alaska could be of any help to our Icelandic counterparts in the rural versus the more city approach. So with me today, we have, hopefully online, both representatives from those rural areas, if you like, and then from the city of Reykjavik. So I think if either Jón Björn Skúlason from Icelandic New Energy representing the city of Reykjavik, or Þorsteinn from Blámi representing the Westfjords or online, I would be really appreciated if they would join me after this.
I'm here. It's Jón Björn Skúlason from Icelandic New Energy. I don't know. I could, of course, give this group one time a presentation of what we've done in hydrogen. We built the first commercial hydrogen refueling station almost 2 decades ago, so in 2003, and deployed buses at that time from Daimler, and then a large vehicle fleet, and etc. And then some bank crisis happened in Iceland, and then we are restarting all over again now, and we've built 2 refueling stations for vehicles. So we have about 30 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in operation at the moment. We have 2 refueling stations. So we have the first taxi project now. So one of the taxis running in the city is on hydrogen. We are in discussion with a number of OEMs regarding trucks, which is maybe the biggest next step in deployment. We don't think private vehicles will be that big in the coming years, or maybe battery electric vehicles will be the main deployment in the passenger vehicle sector. And then the main issues is the marine sector, where we are evaluating both direct hydrogen applications, methanol, ammonia, or any kind of electrofuels. And now the newest development is actually also looking into sustainable aviation fuel, so SAF. In Iceland, of course, all the hydrogen is produced from a renewable source. People often talk about colors of hydrogen. If you talk to people in Iceland, they don't recognize what you mean by colors in hydrogen. Hydrogen is just hydrogen, and it's all produced from a renewable source here. So there's no pink or gray or black or whatever colors people kind of tend to talk about. So when Arthur approached us, we thought this could be an interesting venue to exchange information and potentially learn from each other. Alaska, of course, is also in the Arctic, where an Arctic discussion is very intense at the moment. We're also talking to communities in northern Norway and northern Sweden, which often have the same problems or same issues as we have, which probably you have also. We don't have the same cold as Alaska has, but excuse me, we have other issues. So I'm quite sure, for example, in the maritime sector, there could be a lot of learning shared because we're taking the first step anyway. Norway is deploying the first full-scale fuel cell ferry these days. It's going to be based on liquid hydrogen out of Stavanger. Then they're building a sign liner, which is going to be 60% on hydrogen directly. And they're building at least 2 other ferries, which are mainly or only on hydrogen. So we are trying to learn from them. The first fishing company in Iceland has now taken a decision to exchange one of their engines in their big 50-meter trawler to a methanol engine. And that will be deployed in at least latest early 25, probably, or hopefully late 2024. So, and there's also now a discussion for a full-scale new build on a methanol activity. Ammonia is then being researched quite a lot, and there's a big argument whether ammonia or methanol will win, but I think that's in a discussion that's happening everywhere around the planet. So I could actually speak for a couple of hours. It's not that late in Iceland. It's only 15 to 9, and we're still watching the World Cup going on in Qatar, but the game is almost over because Portugal is trashing Switzerland, so that's fine. But later on, we could do a full-scale presentation on everything that's happening in hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, the vision, and the potential roadmap, which the government of Iceland plans to launch during the next, we hear within 6 weeks. So the experience of operating hydrogen stations, cars, and etc. is over 20 years old in this country here. We hope that there will be trucks driving on hydrogen no later than the beginning of 2024. We're exploring 2 pathways, of course. We're now also exploring internal combustion engines for hydrogen to bridge the cost gap because of the high cost of the fuel cell vehicles. And then the marine sector. So if we could do some kind of a joint activity through this DOE program, that's of high interest to us. And I think, or we could explore different pathways, but my personal opinion, it's almost like not city to city. I would almost see Iceland to Alaska or Reykjavik to Anchorage, and then potentially smaller communities like the Westfjords towards a smaller community in Alaska and exchange information and learning. And one thing we're doing now is also backup power. So we're doing a study for both the airport in Iceland and also for a data communication center. So they plan to put hydrogen fuel cell backup systems in place, which I would assume would be a very common thing in remote villages around Alaska. So that's kind of like, I think I'll give the word slightly to the Westfjords. I know Tinna is at least online. So maybe you take over a little bit the vision from the Westfjord side before we take other discussions. So is it Tinna or Thorsteinn?
And I'll just say that, yeah, we don't want to we're really excited to hear about this. And I'm already thinking that maybe we need to devote an entire working group meeting to a presentation by all of you so we can go into more detail. But Tinna, it would be great to hear a little bit more about what's happening in your region as well.
Yeah, I'll be super quick. So Westfjords is a very remote region in Iceland, and we support like at least most of the maritime sector in Iceland. So we have a lot of the big trawlers, we have the smaller ones. We also have a big issue with power in our area. We're lacking power. So we've been looking into how we can have hydrogen, as I a backup power for maybe, the lines when the grid goes off. We're looking into the trucks with Jónbjörn, how we can, get those running across the country in this remote area. How can we, supply the hydrogen and everything like that? How can we get them on boats? And just overall, we're trying to find, these sectors where we can actually use the hydrogen in a way. We're also looking into methanol, the ferries like Jónbjörn talked about. We have a big ferry here in the area, which we're trying to switch to more sustainable fuel as methanol or something like that. So we are in close contact with Jónbjörn. And of course, we have many similarities between Alaska and the West Shores. We have, rough winters. We may be a bit remote sometimes. You maybe, create the energy in this part of the country, and then you transport to the other ones, and we're missing the infrastructure between. So that's kind of where we're standing here in the West Shores, and that's what we're working on right now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to take one question there in the chat from George. Can any of you comment on any work in Iceland regarding ammonia, and how is the methanol created?
There is no ammonia production in Iceland at the moment. So there is discussion with a couple of companies to start ammonia production, but the initial methanol production is viewed to take the CO2 from first the geothermal drill sites. So when you drill for geothermal, you're going to get quite a bit of CO2 coming out of the boreholes. That is now all separated. It's mandatory for the geothermal companies to separate the CO2 stream, and that stream can be mixed into hydrogen to make the methanol. Of course, if the whole fishing fleet in Iceland becomes a methanol fishing fleet, the main problem will be a lack of CO2 if it's built on a methanol infrastructure. But we have a couple of power-intensive industries like a silicon factory, aluminum smelters, and a ferrosilicon factory. We could probably capture quite a bit of CO2 from that, but immediately when you go to large-scale production and if we go to sustainable aviation fuel, there's going to be a massive shortage of CO2. So CO2 becomes our difficult part, or could be.
Okay, thank you. This is great. It's wonderful to hear about all these activities, and I'm going to tag you to perhaps give us a presentation at a future working group meeting where we can give you lots more time and have lots more discussion about this. So I hope you'll stay engaged with us and be perhaps willing to do that in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you all, and I think Iceland will now just clock out and give you all the rest of the night for yourselves. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're certainly welcome to stay, but I understand that the World Cup match is a bigger draw for sure. So, all right, great. Thank you to our Iceland neighbors. Let's go now to the Arctic Road Rally. Tim, I'm looking at you and any comrades you may have on the call who want to join you in an update on any discussions you've had since our last working group meeting and any additional needs you may have moving forward.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, short update here on that Arctic Road Rally. And as you all know, we're really focused on electric vehicles there. But as I mentioned, I think in our last working group meeting, we're also hoping to decarbonize some of those power sources that are along the way that would electrify the actual charging stations. So what we've been doing the last several months, but certainly this past month as well, is reaching out to some of the OEMs that are responsible for EV charging equipment that also matches up with alternative power sources. Some of those are combined units and such. So the quick update here is we've been in touch with GM Energy and working with them through some of the conversations on their technology, what options they have that are mobile or potentially movable and stationary, but large and trailered units that could be dropped on the ground. And likewise for L-Charge, which is a company out of the UK that is just producing some mobile hydrogen or dual fuel hydrogen or LNG units. And those, it sounds like the units should be, those mobile units should be available in the first part of January, the first part of this coming year. So that's on the equipment side. And I know I had a to-do to talk to Bill, who I think is also on the call here. And so helpful reminder there from Erin. I just emailed you last night, Bill, so I still have yet to actually talk about your generous offer for those electrolyzers. And As far as other alternative powers alternative power units, something that came out of our last conversation was an introduction by Moira Smith from NSTAR, who was with us last month, to Charge Me. They don't have a hydrogen unit, to my knowledge. They're really focused in on natural gas or propane units, but also decarbonization, of course, there is part of their picture. So that's the update from here. And yeah, definitely the need, if there are others who have insights as to equipment or sources for hydrogen that could be matched with some of those equipment providers that I just talked about, let me know. And Bill, I'll follow up with you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. And would you help everybody out by just putting your email address into the chat for anyone who doesn't have it easily accessible? Any quick questions for Tim on these developments? Okay, terrific. And as Tim's name banner says, he's with launch. Oh, go ahead,
George. So Tim, do you need any more references with respect to like hydrogen-based charging stations, or do you feel like you've got enough on the plate to have probability of success?
I think on the equipment side, probability of success is pretty high, but certainly feel free to send me any of those. And this is for anyone. If we can't fit them into the Arctic Road Rally, we have the Tech Deployment Track Business Accelerator Program, which we're going to be recruiting for that next cohort. So certainly send me those names if you have them of other companies. Happy to receive them.
Great, thank you.
And are you targeting August again, Tim, or what is the time frame for that?
For the Arctic Road Rally, that's end of July. So it'd be July 28th through August 1st is the window. So a little bit earlier than the past, this past year.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, terrific. Okay, let's move on to methanol engines. JR and anyone else who may be on the call. And JR, I don't know if you have a quick presentation you want to give, or if you want to just talk off the cuff.
I know I made a little PowerPoint, so we can at least chat through the issue at a high level here.
Are you able to share there?
Yeah, see here, I've got it open and I'm not seeing my my PowerPoint coming up here. Show all windows. There we go. Okay, so I'll talk through this here quickly. Also on the line with me is Craig Graff, who's Alieskim's COO.
Okay, we're not seeing your presentation. Oh, now we are, or
Now
something.
we are.
Well, it says it started, so I'm hoping it pops up here in a minute.
Yeah.
It says that you have started screen sharing, but at least I'm still seeing a black screen. Sometimes, maybe let's give it a minute. No, I'm not seeing anything yet.
Yeah, my screen has frozen also.
Oh, lovely. That's convenient.
Can you somehow end?
Patty, are you able to end something? Oh, there we go. Now we see it.
Is it working? Okay, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so yeah, I know I have 5 minutes here, and but brief introduction for people who don't know me. I'm founder president of a company that we're trying to build a small chemical plant on the North Slope. It can make lots of things. One of the primary products is methanol. That's what got us interested in methanol. And as we participated in more industry conferences and stuff, we realized that this had broad applications, not just for what it's currently used for in Alaska. We use a lot of it on the North Slope for freeze protection and equipment maintenance and things like that. But we realized that it was an incredibly promising fuel, and is increasingly being adopted around the world, and actually has a lot of potential applications as a hydrogen carrier for Alaska. So this opening slide sort of shows in a lot of the attraction of methanol as a hydrogen carrier. I've got a diagram of a hydrogen tank rated for 5,000 PSI on the left. You can see that's a rather complex tank. If you see the methanol tank on the right, that's just cheap plastic. That's to put into a race car. If somebody wanted methanol, and you'll see that the the tank on the left holds less than 2.5 megajoules per liter, whereas the plastic tank on the right holds 15.6 megajoules per liter. So it's really that the fact that it is easily moved around in a liquid form, and it has a high energy density, still about half of what you'd see from gasoline, but of a lot of alternative fuels, methanol is still kind of a winner, and it's relatively technologically mature. I think so the benefits is that it's high octane and it's nearly a drop-in replacement for existing hydrocarbon fuels. It's cheap to make and to transport. One of the key things that we've found on the North Slope is, at least on the North Slope, it's actually beats hydrocarbons just on an economic basis per BTU. Forget gallon, like per BTU, you would use the methanol if you could. There's a lot of ancillary environmental benefits, but you don't even have to get into that. It's just cheaper. It is a huge boost to air pollution, not just a cut to CO2 emissions, but also carbon monoxide, particulate matter is virtually eliminated. There's no sulfur. There's low VOCs, and in most cases the nitrogen oxides are reduced, though that one's a little more complicated. Also, it's miscible with water and digested by microbes, so you don't wind up with soil pollution. That if it's intense in a specific area, it's no good, but you can fight it by diluting it, and then it's digested in the natural ecosystem. So much lower potential for soil and water pollution as well. It can be used either in spark ignition or compression engine ignitions, turbines, and fuel cells. And it can be made from, it's primarily and traditionally made from natural gas in the United States, but it can also be made from biofeedstocks, or like they are in Norway, directly from CO2 and hydrogen, which could be derived from water. So that plant that's pictured on the bottom of that slide is in Iceland, and that's where it's kind of apropos of the discussion we were just having. That's how they're making the methanol. That CO2 that otherwise would go into the atmosphere, and instead it's being turned into an energy carrier. So a few options that we see that are real opportunities for Alaska having to do with methanol. The first is that our company would be able to provide methanol economically to the North Slope applications that would improve cost, environment, and logistics, because instead of bringing it for thousands of miles, or you're making it there. That's same with fuel. It seems like it's maybe the best alternative for power generation in the bush. Whatever we move out to the rural areas will have to be a fairly energy dense fuel, and it's nice. My dad was a utilities manager, and I know how good it is to have a fuel that doesn't gel in the winter, and if it were to spill into a salmon stream, isn't going to kill stuff in it. It's potentially could be used to help lower carbon monoxide problems in Fairbanks by being mixed into existing fuel stocks. There's a big push globally to source green methanol right now, as a lot of the major shipping companies are building methanol-fired vessels that will be deploying, over the next 5 years, and they want green methanol. So the time to be active in the market and promoting Alaska as a source of green methanol is upon us already, which is a little faster than we're probably ready for. We do have a grant that came out of, I believe it was the, oh gosh, I'm losing all the acronyms, but the stimulus package, a couple stimulus packages ago, Alaska got line items for 2 clean ferries to be built. And those can be battery or hydrogen, and the hydrogen can be a hydrogen carrier. So we could, have federal grants in place right now to build up to 2 methanol-fired state ferries. And just the last thing to note is, given the emergence of the Arctic as a increasingly heavily trafficked shipping corridor, that if you spill hydrocarbon fuels in broken ice conditions, it's particularly destructive and hard to clean up. And particularly when applied to Arctic shipping applications, it seems like we may want to be, requiring or incentivizing cleaner fuels. An ancillary benefit of that is that really eliminating black carbon is a huge advantage to fighting global warming. It's not CO2, but going to soot-free fuels like methanol. There's some research that suggests that it might have actually double the impact of, if you could eliminate soot, that would make more than twice as big a difference in the short term versus eliminating all CO2 emissions. So it's not a minor effect. Right now, we're really trying to focus on getting this plant built on the North Slope, and so this has been sort of a side project that we've really embraced enthusiastically because we think it's great for Alaska in the future. But we've been trying to figure out how we get methanol engines into the state, and we talked about this briefly. Methanol engines are currently being certified for use in the European Union, in China, and for use on ships. But it's proven complex, expensive, and lengthy to get anything approved by the US EPA. And so we've been trying to talk to the EPA, to engine manufacturers, and try and find a pathway by which a methanol engine currently certified, for the European Union and that would meet, US emission standards could be, used inside the United States. And this is proving to be a very difficult thing. It's like the technology is ready, the economics are ready, big payoff, from getting to a next generation fuel economy, and we can't figure out how to navigate the EPA approval process. We could talk for that a while. I'd like to especially thank Michael Whelan for helping us out. We just spoke to a gentleman in Belgium today, and they're also making some engines, but have run into sort of the same problems with EPA certifications. And that is a picture of Maersk's new green methanol vessels, which should be starting, they should be fully built and deployed, the first 8 of them in 2024. And that sucker is going to chew up a lot of green methanol. But anyway, hopefully that was a good 5-minute overview. Hopefully I didn't go too far over 5 minutes, but
thanks, JR. So it sounds like you're trying to take on the EPA for this.
It is interesting because, there's so much money that goes into developing technologies in the first place. And then you get to something where you actually have a fairly mature technology that would accomplish a lot of things we want to accomplish. And it's like, it's almost a non-monetary problem. With enough money, you could solve it, but it's really figuring out how to get out of our own way so we can start doing things which are completely technically and economically possible.
Do you think there's a way for this working group to engage in a meaningful way with what sounds like really is a national roadblock?
Oh yeah, I absolutely think so. I don't want to co-opt the whole meeting here, but I think broadly, we think that, the more public support we can get for this, the more attention EPA is going to devote to trying to be flexible and allowing these sorts of things to happen. So that sort of support is invaluable. I think given the urgency really nationally for working on energy transition issues, I think that we could be behind or supportive of an effort similar to what the EU did, where they said, look, if you can demonstrate that engine X meets or beats the current emissions out there, you can just import it. Like that was something they did for methanol engines in the EU, which has really increased adoption. They basically, kind of got out of the way and just said, okay, if it's cleaner, you can use it,
Okay.
Which would make a lot of sense. I think specifically with ACEP, we would like to cooperate with ACEP in demonstrating these engines and showing that they are in fact better alternatives than what currently exists on the market.
Okay. And is there anything specifically you'd like to ask for from this group?
Well, we'll formulate it better. I kind of wanted to get an overall this topic, but yes, if anybody has further ideas, we're this isn't the core of our business, but it's something that we're really interested in and think that it really aligns well with the goals of this group and allows Alaska a way in the fairly near term to start really moving the needle on things both here locally and possibly nationally or internationally. But we need to kind of figure out how to actually do it.
Okay, looks like we've got a quick comment from Eric O'Brien.
Hi there, Eric O'Brien from the Denali Commission. I'm the Economic Development Program Manager. I point out that our Energy Program Manager is on the line here, Katie Conway. But the short of it is the Denali Commission was set up to facilitate more investment in rural Alaska. And I wonder if it's appropriate for me to go talk to my superiors or my boss, federal co-chair Garrett Boyle, and he works at that level where they work agency to agency. And there may be something to be said. I don't know what we have in effect to affect policy from a different agency, but you know, is a slight thing that may be something that we could do if others thought it would be a good idea. And JR, it does sound like it's a frustration for you.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, no, it would be phenomenal. I mean, just trying to get, you know, this isn't something where, you know, we can sit back as a country and wait for the engine manufacturers to beat down the doors of the EPA process to sell methanol engines, you know, because they kind of got burned by that once in the 90s when they spent millions of dollars getting methanol engines through, and then the fuel distribution infrastructure didn't get built out and all those engines are out of style. So we're going to need to somehow facilitate this one in a non-traditional way. And I think what you're suggesting is exactly the way it would need to start, as sort of government to government communications saying, hey, this is something that we see as an economic and environmental opportunity that we want to help facilitate.
Okay.
If it's okay, I'll follow up with you and email JR just to get more background on the problem. We'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to keep moving here because I want to make sure we've got enough time for Brad's presentation as well. I will just provide a quick update on the state roadmap effort. We do have a subcommittee. If you're interested in meeting with our committee, we've had a couple discussions. Please put your email in the chat or send your email directly to Patty Egan here in the chat. She's our coordinator. That committee is meeting again this Friday. But in short, our short-term effort was a response to the national clean hydrogen strategy and roadmap draft. And we did send that response out to everyone at the end of last week. And I think we can work on trying to get those materials up on our working group website so they're widely available to anyone else who needs them. But of course, you can always ask us for them if you didn't receive them. So that response went in. I want to thank everyone who contributed to that response. It was a lot of different voices that we tried to weave into a cohesive narrative. And I think that was a good place from which to start collecting our thoughts as we start to put together a process for developing a state roadmap. And I want to underscore that we don't have any sort of state directive to develop a roadmap. You know, the governor is not ordering us to do anything, but this group expressed at the last meeting a desire to generate something. So the committee is coming up with a process. They're not actually writing the roadmap themselves, but the committee is actively working on a process that will then incorporate all of you and lots of other voices from around the state to generate that roadmap. So that effort is ongoing. And again, if you're interested in being involved and you haven't already been involved, let me or Patty know and we'll loop you into those meetings. So those are the short-term project updates. What I'd like to do now is just open the floor ever so briefly, especially for people who weren't with us at our last working group meeting, to either introduce yourselves or to give us any relevant updates on hydrogen activities in the state. And I want to keep these quite short. If you raise your hand, I can call on you. So Doug Johnson, I am going to start with you. Thank you for your exemplary Zoom behavior here.
Oh, you're welcome. Doug Johnson, ORPC. I just wanted to say I was unfortunately wasn't able to attend the very first meeting, but I'm happy to be here today. We at ORPC are fully engaged in this effort around looking at the whole electrofuels arena, and we feel that hydrogen is certainly a key there. I'd also like to just let everyone know that we were very successful and as a group yesterday and launched our first tidal energy, Cook Inlet Tidal Energy Working Group, hosted by Levi Kilcher from NREL and the Alaska Center for Energy Environment, Alaska Center for Energy and Power. So that is up and running and moving forward.
Thanks, Doug. And Doug, for anyone who doesn't have your email readily available, can you put it in the chat here so people can get in touch with you for more information on any of those activities?
Will do.
Okay, thanks. I see Andrew Gregovich's hand up. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Aaron, and hello, everyone. So I'm a geoscientist. I've been working in primarily mineral exploration for the last 5 years, but through my graduate studies have been involved in looking at carbon sequestration and carbon neutral fuels. And just recently, after taking a short course that was put on by a researcher in Aberdeen, Scotland, sort of had this light bulb moment that there was an opportunity to do green hydrogen here in Juneau, where we would produce the hydrogen via electrolysis and store it underground in the old AJ mine workings. And so that's an idea that I'm interested in pursuing and putting out into the world and trying to find partners to move it forward with.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Please put your email in the chat so people can get in touch with you to follow up. Bill.
Aaron, thank you. Am I here?
Yep,
Yes,
we hear you.
Thank you. I'm on the advisory committee for the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, in addition to my roles as the Leedy Foundation and Alaska Applied Sciences, Inc. I have suggested through the RFI process to this Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub that one of the major projects that they should include in their full application for this $1 billion of alleged funding is the green corridor concept that is emerging for the Southeast Alaska cruise ship industry, whereby the industry meeting in a ports conference in Vancouver in May said, we got to clean up our act here. How about a green corridor to decarbonize the cruise ship industry as we know it? So I don't know that anything will come of that. If it does, perhaps that will allow Alaska to be included in the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub definition. I think it is not now, but I'll pursue that. That's part of my responsibility. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Bill. And for everyone who's providing updates here, please put your email in the chat so people can follow up with you. Andrew Sorensen.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Andrew Sorensen. I'm a engineering technician / engineer in training at the launch company based here in Anchorage, Alaska. We specialize in ground support equipment for launching commercial rockets into space. Personally, I've been passionate about hydrogen for about this last 17 years or so. And so I've been kind of following it along, and I'm currently in school for mechanical engineering. That's sort of my main motivation for going back to school. So yeah, really just glad to be a part of this group and kind of following along, and looking forward to being able to contribute in any way that I can.
Terrific. Thanks you so much. Haley.
Hi, everyone. My name's Haley Reed. I'm here with Alaska Economic Vision Coalition, which is a forming coalition that is looking at what Alaska's next economy is going to look like, and hydrogen is definitely a part of that vision, I believe. And so just kind of here to listen and get an update on what's going on in hydrogen in Alaska, and to make any connections that of people who might be interested in talking about hydrogen as an economic driver with the coalition. So I'll put my email in the chat, and just happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Kay Brown, I think I saw your hand up next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kay Brown. I work with Pacific Environment, and that organization is working nationally and internationally to try to decarbonize the shipping industry and create green corridors in various places around the world. So I'm just here to learn and get up to date on what's going on in Alaska.
Terrific. Thank you. Glad to have you here. Lee Bowling.
Hi, everyone. Lee Bowling. I'm with Kaufman Engineers, and just want to introduce myself. Also on the call is Justin Freeman. He's our VP of hydrogen and CCUS. So he's not able to talk. I think he's got a bad connection, but he put his contact in the chat there. So anyway, I just want to introduce ourselves, everybody, and excited to be part of this group. Thanks.
Great. I don't see any other hands up. Does anyone else want to jump in with any hydrogen updates or introduce yourselves to the group if you weren't on our last call? Terrific. Thank you all for those updates. Really exciting, and thanks for keeping them brief. Oh, Vin Robinson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can get my camera. Oh, there it is. Camera's working now. Vin Robinson, just wanted to introduce myself. I'm with NSTAR Natural Gas, Director of Engineering, and I really don't have a lot to say. I'm here to listen and learn, and anybody has any needs to talk to the gas company, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my address in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Brad, thank you so much for waiting patiently. We're all very excited about your presentation. I hope we've left you enough time. I'm going to give the floor to you. Brad Chastain is with the Alaska Gasline Development Corporation, and he is going to give us a rundown on the Hydrogen Hub's Alaska Hydrogen Hub proposal that their organization led and submitted last month. And hopefully, Brad, you've recovered enough from that effort to coherently give us a summary of those efforts. So go for it.
I hope so also. Can you see my slides, Erin?
Yep, it looks great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, we'll move along quickly through the presentation so we can allow some time for questions. And I see that it looks like the questions in the chat are getting recorded. So we'll have the opportunity to get back to anybody who might have any specific questions. So this is Brad Chastain. I'm the Alaska LNG project manager at the Alaska Gasline Development Corporation. If you're not familiar with AGDC, we're a state-owned corporation. So we're a little different animal than a normal agency. We're a lot more like ADA or the Alaska Railroad. We have an independent board of directors here that are appointed by the governor, but we operate independent from state government. The bottom line is AGDC's mission is to develop infrastructure to provide North Slope gas for the benefit of Alaskans. So anything we can do with North Slope gas and the infrastructure to get it places where it can be beneficially used and can generate revenue and can solve problems, that's our mission at AGDC. And hopefully that will make a little bit of sense in the context of why I'm talking about hydrogen today. So let me go ahead and start down the presentation. I'm obligated here to first start with Alaska LNG because all of these opportunities that I'm going to talk about, this opportunity to really jumpstart and be the bedrock of a new hydrogen economy in Alaska really centers on North Slope gas. So if you're not familiar with the Alaska LNG project, it starts with the North Slope gas supply, which is about 40 trillion standard cubic feet of existing producible gas that's known between the Point Thompson unit and the Prudhoe Bay unit. That gas is currently stranded, as most of you know from Alaska. We have the ability to export oil off the North Slope through the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System, but we do not have the gas pipeline that we've all wanted to have since the 1970s when oil development first occurred on the North Slope. So our project consists of 3 large sub-projects. This is a very large mega project. The first is a large facility up in Prudhoe Bay. It's our Arctic carbon capture plant. This is a gas treatment facility that basically takes the CO2 out of the feedstock that's coming from the produced fields and returns that CO2 for sequestration in the formation up on the North Slope. So it's a very large facility. There'll be a CO2 stream coming off that facility of about 350 million standard cubic feet per day to give you a size of the scale. And then, of course, we have our pipeline, this mainline pipeline, which will travel from the North Slope 807 miles down to the Kenai Peninsula, is 42 inches in diameter. It's a buried, very conventional natural gas pipeline. We'll have some compression along the way to basically keep the gas flowing and also to keep the temperature in a range that is ideal for how we're going to construct the pipeline through permafrost and sub-permafrost areas. Along the way, there'll be gas for Alaskans, interconnection to our residents in the state. And of course, we're coming right down the rail belt there to the west of Fairbanks. That's where we deviate from the Trans-Alaska pipeline alignment. And we'll be able to solve Fairbanks' energy security needs, as well as solve a lot of the health problems there with air quality. And we'll bring gas into the rail belt, including the existing distribution system that Vincent oversees in South Central Alaska. And then finally, at the terminus of our pipeline, in Nikiski on the Kenai Peninsula is the LNG facility. This is where we're going to liquefy the natural gas so we can concentrate the energy, like JR was talking about, get it into liquid form so it's concentrated, it can be stored, loaded onto tankers, and then shipped to very hungry markets right now that need LNG. That plant will ship 20 million tons per annum when it's up and running at its full capacity. And it consists of 3 liquefaction trains, also has a jetty to 2 loading berths and a couple of large LNG tanks. So very conventional technology. This is the conventional approach to basically monetizing Alaska's stranded gas assets. This is just a vicinity map to kind of give you a little blow up around the area of the Kenai Peninsula. And you can see our pipeline does cross Cook Inlet, terminates in Nikiski. We have interconnections that we've worked on with NSTAR, ideal interconnections on both the west side and the east side of Cook Inlet to tie into NSTAR system to get gas to the existing distribution system here in South Central Alaska. And obviously, as we think about Nikiski, this is one of our industrial complex areas in the state of Alaska. We have a refinery there that's operating. We also have some mothballed facilities, including a LNG facility that exported LNG for over 40 years reliably to Japan, and a fertilizer plant that's currently owned by Nutrien. Our LNG facility will be located directly south of those 2 currently mothballed plants. So as we've engaged the market in investing in Alaska LNG, because it is the intention of AGDC to turn this project over to private companies to build, own, and operate in the future, the question started arriving about 1.5 years, 2 years ago from these parties, a lot of them in Asia. What about the future? Where does Alaska LNG satisfy the needs we have here in the next 30 years? And how could it be future-proofed for our needs to decarbonize our own countries? And that's the whole discussion of hydrogen and how that came about. I know we've got some experts here, and I'm not an expert. I'm not going to bore you with trying to explain how hydrogen is produced and whatnot. I just want to recognize that, there's the conventional way that 95% of hydrogen is produced today in the world, which is through methane reforming with natural gas as a feedstock, and then electrolysis, which is, commonly referred to as green hydrogen or green ammonia if you're going to go ahead and synthesize ammonia. This is with energy from renewables. Obviously, the electrolyzer process is got a long ways to go technologically, and it's hugely expensive. That's why most of the current need is being met through methane reforming. And then I think JR did a great job of talking about why do you need a carrier? Because once you've generated hydrogen gas, what do you do with it? Well, it's a pestery little molecule. It tends to want to get out of things. So it's kind of problematic when it comes to pipelining and storing. If you're going to liquefy it, you're going to pour huge amounts of energy. It's economically very challenging to try to get it concentrated. And so that's where the whole discussion of carriers comes in. And certainly methanol is one that's emerging as a real opportunity. But I'm focusing here for purposes of discussing the Alaska Hydrogen Hub around ammonia. Ammonia is the carbon-free carrier, basically using nitrogen to fix the hydrogen. And regardless of how that is made, ultimately, then you get to enter a supply chain that's very conventional. You can store ammonia at atmospheric pressure. You can pump it. You can put it on tankers, on barges, and then you can go ahead and get it to end users who might choose to decompose it to get hydrogen gas again, although not very common right now. But more importantly, to users that today have market needs to use ammonia in direct firing of their power generation in Asia. So how did we get involved in all of this at AGDC? Well, as we started to engage these parties talking about future-proofing their energy needs, we started to see a picture about what Alaska could be. We're an energy powerhouse, we're an exporting state, we have vast resources of every kind, and we started to think about how hydrogen could be the real untapped natural resource that Alaska could be sitting up here in the North Pacific and be providing to the Pacific Rim. And so that led to a couple of efforts. These are running in parallel and they're not mutually exclusive. In many ways, they're going to merge. First of all, there's a Japanese led work team that's currently studying producing low carbon intensity ammonia in Nikiski from methane reforming. And the companies that are involved are listed here: Mitsubishi Corporation, Toyo Engineering, as well as Hillcorp and AGDC. And we're in a memorandum of understanding right now, progressing that pre-feasibility study. And Toyo and Mitsubishi are going to the Japanese government to seek Japanese government funds to kind of notch that up to a full feasibility study as soon as mid-2023. So a lot of interest in ammonia generation and supply from Alaska from this key trading partner in Japan. And at the same time, then with the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law and the money that was set aside for the Hydrogen Hub program, we started to see a picture about, well, we may have a good proposal here for Alaska to take forward. And that leads us really to the discussion about the Hydrogen Hub proposal. If you're not familiar with the Hydrogen Hub program, the concept basically in the bill, the bill, is that there would be 6 to 10 of these hubs across the United States. The federal government would jumpstart this industry, get these up and running, and they would eventually start to grow organically and connect. And we create a new clean energy hydrogen economy with government intervention, essentially. As the process unveiled itself throughout this year with the competitive procurement that DOE has been putting on, they started to really talk about what they meant by a hub, and they put some numbers around it. And you'll see here that they're looking for a hub that produces at least 50 to 100 tons per day of hydrogen. So they're really trying to weed out, or our impression is they were really trying to weed out some of the smaller projects or pilot scale type propositions that might be out there and come forward. To give you an idea of the potential prize here in federal investment that could come to a hub region, you know, they kind of indicated around a 1 billion mark. They didn't want to see less than a project less than maybe $500 million of federal matching and probably not north of that $1 billion mark. So this is a significant cost prize to get a whole new industry started in a region. And since we were already working with our partners on this idea of low carbon intensity ammonia production in Nikiski, as the governor's office started to grapple with all of these opportunities coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act and all this. Some of you know Miles Baker. He's been coordinating this on behalf of the administration. They started to look around and say, who could take the lead on these things? And it became obvious that AGDC was in a good position to potentially pursue this competitive award from the Department of Energy. So what is the concept? Well, the concept here is that we can kind of ratchet up an immediate production of hydrogen that's at commercial scale, world-class scale. And by doing that, it would be a pathfinder then for all of the other hydrogen opportunities in Alaska. So while we're very narrowly focused on scope in our proposal, I don't want to leave you with the impression that we left anybody out. And all of the great ideas that are out there and all of the pursuits, we really did try to carry that water in the sense that if we can get this beachhead for Alaska, all these doors to these markets will be open for all those other great opportunities, including green hydrogen and green ammonia production down the road. So the hydrogen hub concept is very simple. On the back of the Alaska LNG project, we would establish low carbon intensity ammonia production in Nikiski using brownfield existing infrastructure coupled with carbon sequestration that would be new build infrastructure. So why did we think Alaska might be positioned well for this? And I have to just kind of deviate right now and point out that while I was responsible for this hub proposal and the ongoing pursuit, we've got Chris Humphrey on the line with EXP, and Chris is kind of my cohort in this whole pursuit, and his team has supported us throughout this. So if you know Chris, or you're talking to Chris later and you have questions about this Alaska Hydrogen Hub, I would encourage you to talk to him. He's extremely knowledgeable about all the details. So why did we think we were significant in pursuing an award, and what might be our levers that we could pull in Alaska? So we're looking at what the DOE is trying to accomplish, and they're really trying to produce real production. Okay, and they're very clear. They don't want studies. This is an R&D effort. They want real production for their dollars. So we looked at what we have, and we're driven by market demand. We have customers who want to sign up for long-term contracts for low carbon intensity ammonia now. We've got a very clear scope of work and a project plan that we could define clearly. This is a sustainable commercial model on day one. This isn't something that will have to be subsidized far into the future. And that's very important to the Department of Energy, as they indicated in their funding opportunity announcement. We have the private sector parties already in place that we're discussing other commercial terms with that could bring the private sector investment into this. And of course, we have this immense gas resource. We've got this incredible resource with regard to renewables. So the world of possibilities is almost unlimited for future production of hydrogen and hydrogen carriers. And we really see this as like a new industry that has these immense economic benefits statewide, and that a lot of those environmental justice benefits and whatnot, we were able to articulate into our concept paper that we submitted. So this diagram here just basically is showing the flow of natural gas into the Agrium plant. So this is the existing currently mothballed fertilizer plant. The Agrium plant has 2 ammonia units. They produced liquid ammonia, stored it, loaded it onto barges for over 40 years. And so there's nothing new basically about this operation in Nikiski. Ultimately, that ammonia can go to export markets, as well as opportunities for use in Alaska can be explored. And then of course, in order to have low carbon intensity ammonia production, we're going to have to capture the process CO2 off of the reformers, and that will be coming to a new Cook Inlet carbon sequestration facility. And if you know much about the geology in Cook Inlet, or you've been listening to any of our recent presentations in the last few months, you know that it's an enormous resource of opportunity for carbon sequestration, estimated at 50 gigatons or more. So the core of this proposal is the Nutrien Kenai plant. This facility is currently in cold shutdown, but is very Nutrien is extremely interested in bringing it back up. The good news, I would just say as an aside, while we're pursuing this hydrogen hub DOE money, the fact of the matter is, if Alaska LNG is built, this plant is going to restart. So the hydrogen hub is coming regardless if the Alaska LNG project liberates our North Slope gas. This was shut down in 2007 because of lack of feedstock in Cook Inlet. It's a depleting basin for production, and you've recently seen some indications in the news that there's some concern about its future ability to even produce enough for our own heating and power generation on the rail belt. And all of this kit has been maintained and is basically ready for refurbishment. And that is the essence of the project plan that we put into our concept paper, that this plant would be refurbished, the reformers would be refurbished to capture the CO2, and they would restart. We also have included an expansion option, a third new autothermal reforming state-of-the-art unit, and characterize that in our concept paper. As far as the carbon capture and sequestration, there's a number of fields nearby that have depleted gas sands that are ideal for carbon sequestration, and we've got some basic capacity sort of information about those. For example, on the right, there's the Kenai gas field located south of Nikiski. There's established pipeline corridors, and there is at least over 100 million tons of capacity in depleted gas lines alone in the Kenai gas field. So our partner in this pursuit, which is a group of companies called the CCUS Consortium, is interested in developing the sequestration facility as part of the Alaska Hydrogen Hub. So the organization that we put together in our concept is being led by AGDC. There has to be a single applicant, and the Department of Energy signaled early that their public-private partnerships were sort of their ideal scenario that they'd like to see. So basically, AGDC would act as sort of a coordinator of the hub and take care of things like compliance with the DOE requirements and whatnot. But the real work would be done on those two major scopes of work by Agrium, our partner, Agrium US, and the Alaska CCUS Consortium, which consists of Strega, Santos, and ASRC Energy Services. We also have involvement in the hub from Salamatov Native Association, which is the Alaska Native Village Corporation located right in the center of Nikiski. And then to basically look to the future, our key player on our team is the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. So ACEP is really how we look at the organic growth, the incubator of organic growth for the hub outward. And this group here is an example of ACEP performing that function, and that's how we characterized it in our proposal. To give you an idea of timeline involved here, this isn't going to be just a couple years. The Department of Energy has got a process they want to follow, and if you know anything about working with the federal government, they're going to want to be involved at every step. There's going to be a lot of off ramps, and so they're going to basically be wanting to make sure at each major decision point, all the way through construction and startup, that they're fully meeting their objectives. So there's a 12-year project timeline to not only initial production of 600 tons per day, but the ramp up to expansion, which we've pegged at about 1,600 tons per day. Okay, so as far as the proposal goes, the Department of Energy has a two-step process. They first want to see concept papers. Those were due on the 7th of November. And then they want to review those, and they want to provide feedback to either encourage or discourage going to a full application. Now, this concept paper was just a 20-page paper, and you might think, wow, I can probably cack that out in a weekend. Well, it was a very substantial effort because of the specificity required as to the scope, schedule, and cost of your particular concept. The full application is 100 pages and will involve a lot more, including commercial agreements, class 4 cost estimate, and a lot more detailed technical information. So the requirement of the concept paper is right up front. You had to indicate how much money you would be asking for under your concept. So our ask was $850 million of DOE funding, and that would attract about $3.75 billion of private sector funds. So you can see we're not asking for 50-50 for the full expanded concept. We're asking for about 22-23%. And we think that's very attractive. Those are dollars that would be well spent to attract private sector dollars and bring real capacity online. We expect if DOE sticks to their current schedule that by the end of this month, the end of December, they'll be getting back to applicants with an encourage or a discourage notification. And if we proceed to a full application, that would be due on the current schedule on April 7th. This is just the same sort of schedule laid out over a simple Gantt chart. You can see right here, we're in this waiting for a encourage, discourage, a notification. And then our team will sit down, including all of our team members, upon receiving that indication from Department of Energy. And we'll talk about our own go, no-go decision. And that's not a foregone conclusion. I don't want to lead anybody to believe, hey, we're going for a full application no matter what. And I was surprised to see a couple other regions issue press releases in November saying, hey, we're so excited about our concept. We're proceeding right to the full application. So that's pretty cocky. But if you want to expend your resources that way, that's fine. We want to see what the DOE has to say, and then we want to also look at what risks are involved in having the Department of Energy so involved in such a large industrial project like this. And we'll make that decision public when that takes place, as soon as the end of the year, depending on when the Department of Energy makes notifications. You might be asking, what about the competitive landscape out there? Well, there's dozens of competing proposals. Some are very mature and very sophisticated. There's not a lot of public information. The Department of Energy has not produced any real information about who applied their concept papers or any granularity around those concept papers. They won't even indicate the number that were submitted. So unless people are self-reporting out there or making things public, there's really a limited amount of information, but it's going to be a tough competition. And we know we've got a couple of aspects of our concept that, may not land well. For instance, we're primarily an export opportunity, and we don't see where DOE has really embraced the idea that exporting clean energy will also contributes to lowering carbon emissions, and it shouldn't just be lower 48 centric. So we're waiting to see if they really caught on to what we think are the really unique opportunities about the Alaska Hydrogen Hub. So lastly, the next steps, we're going to wait for this decision from the Department of Energy to get back to us. We'll make this go, no-go decision. And if we decide to go forward, then we will go ahead and make a public announcement of that so that folks know what we're up to. We have a lot of work to do on commercial agreements because a full application requires a full teaming agreement, which commits the parties to all of the scope. And you can see from the size of the funds required to refurbish the nutrient plant, as well as invest in this new carbon sequestration facility in Cook Inlet. These are very significant commercial decisions that our private sector partners are going to participate in. We'll have the hard work of getting that full application done to the best quality possible to bring this opportunity to Alaska, and then be prepared then to execute the plan that we're going to be putting forward under that application, which would be a multi-year effort and would involve a lot of focus, obviously. So with that, I think I did okay in leaving us a little bit of time, Erin.
Yes, thank you, Brad. That was great. That was a lot of information. Really appreciate the overview there. We do have some time for questions. I will kick it off by asking, and maybe you alluded to this already and I didn't totally pick up on it. What parts of the project would the DOE funds fund as opposed to other external and private funds?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my darn screen share off here. What am I missing? So let me answer that question directly. So phase one, which would bring up the existing 2 ammonia units in the nutrient plant, is about a $1.7 billion overall spend. And so if you took our request of 846 million and you split that, you'd see that's about a 50% for phase one. It's about a 50% DOE cost matching. The expansion we feel is economic on its own, and that would add an additional about $2.9 billion for this new ATR unit, taking the production of hydrogen. And we're talking the hydrogen terms, not the ammonia mass terms, because that's the way DOE wanted to see it. That would take it up to about 1,600 tons per day. That's an overall project, phase one, phase two, cumulative of about $4.6 billion, of which the DOE would have invested $846 million, or about 23%.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Kai, I see a question from you.
Yeah, thanks, Erin, and thanks, Brad, for the presentation and the update on all this. It's probably a high-level question, but I'm curious, how do you view all of the other potentially related or complementary hydrogen type of project activities? It seems like this proposal came together and kept a pretty tight focus in on the gas line and the infrastructure around that hydrogen play with that, while there's a significant number of other hydrogen related projects being discussed. And as this thing moves ahead, what's the strategy that we might see unfold in terms of the stakeholders, partners, and potentially a broader network of hydrogen related activities that complement what's been put into kind of this backbone project, as I would see it?
Okay, so we stood back and we really spent a lot of time talking about what would it take to win. And that's where we're focused on, is winning. And we felt pretty strongly that, you know, in Alaska, unfortunately, we're such a small population. We don't have the large energy intensive industry here. We're not going to win a hydrogen hub based on a green hydrogen proposal. I mean, it would, in my opinion, would be a complete waste of time to try to do that out of Alaska. So we had to try to look at what would make us distinctive. 600 tons per day could be the largest mass of production that they saw in any of the concept papers. I don't know. It'll be interesting if we ever see that data. So we really wanted to come in with some shock value at something that would be sustainable on day one, would be conventional, would be here and now, that would represent really moving the opportunity for hydrogen fuel generation up a notch in the US overall, and then would open all those doors. So what I would say is that when we establish this supply chain under these long-term contracts for low carbon intensity ammonia out of Nikiski, everybody here who wants to be in this space, your job just got an order of magnitude easier, because those markets are going to next want to talk to those other opportunities. So it's about opening doors to markets in my mind. And I hope that directly answers your question.
Okay, thanks, Brad. JR.
Unmute myself here. Brad, so thank you very much for the presentation. That was great. I was wondering, could you speak a little bit more to how this proposal and the overall AGDC effort interrelate to one another? For example, would winning this award from DOE improve the prospects for the project as a whole? How do we address like a DOE concern that, well, this is contingent on another project that isn't set in stone? I don't know if you can help us think through that.
Right. So it's project on project risk. We know that's one of one of our soft spots. So, you know, if the Department of Energy came back and said, sorry, this is dependent on another project, another big project getting built, that won't shock us. But I'll tell you, a lot of the other hub proposals out there are contingent on a whole lot of other things getting built by others, and they're not well structured. They're generalized. Like, we got a whole bunch of people and we're all on a big list, and here's our hub, right? So
right, and this time you're the one building it, so it's a little more credible than those people that are waiting for a third party to do something.
Right, yeah, but it is true. Our concept doesn't work unless we can get feedstock to the nutrient plant. That's very true. Now, the timeline involved here, I kind of blew past the chart a little bit, but you know, they're looking at making awards sometime late next year, and then there's contract negotiations on that award. You know, you can easily see this dragging into 2024. There's going to be a lot of water under the bridge in the Alaska LNG project, and there's going to be off ramps along the way, on our side as well as the Department of Energy side.
But will success on this project help the overall gas pipeline effort? Okay,
so yeah, sorry, I went past that question. So we've already won, JR. What I would tell you is we already won. And the reason is Asia believes in hydrogen from Alaska. And so going back to my point, if Alaska LNG is built, the Alaska Hydrogen Hub happens. And all those doors I'm talking about for other renewable opportunities, wide open. So we've crossed that threshold. These meetings you're reading about in Japan, in Korea, with our congressional delegation, with Ambassador Rahm Emanuel, all this, these companies, they're looking to Alaska for LNG, and they want a future-proofed vision for hydrogen, and they believe it's going to come from Alaska. They see Alaska as our 100-year clean energy source. I'm evangelizing a little bit here, but it's
no, I appreciate it. And but I mean, implicit in that, it does still help move things along. If say the DOE says, yeah, move to the next level, and that just helps build credibility with the Asian buyers and reinforces the message that we're really in this.
Well, we think it's just, this would be well spent money by the federal government, hard-earned taxpayer money, to spend it here in Alaska.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Maybe a final question for Brad from anyone else on the call here? Okay. Well, thank you, Brad, for the excellent presentation. Thank you for the questions. And just as a reminder to everyone, we do have it recorded, and we'll be getting these materials up on our Hydrogen Working Group website. I really appreciate everyone's participation today. We're coming up on the top of the hour, so I want to wrap things up with two final items. One is the date of our next meeting. Right now, we're on a semi-schedule of first Tuesday of the month. The next such occurrence is Tuesday, January 3rd, which I'm going to argue is a little too close to the holidays. It falls during kids' Christmas breaks and all of that. So I would like to propose, unless people want to meet sooner, that we skip January and meet again on Tuesday, February 7th. And for now, I think I would schedule the same time and general format. Are there any significant objections to that plan, or people who are antsy for a large group meeting sooner than that, with the understanding that a number of these committees, like the Roadmap Committee, will be continuing to do their work in the process? Okay, I am going to take your silence as consent. That's great. So we will be sending out an invitation for Tuesday, January 7th. Sorry, February 7th. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Lots of information streams coming in here all at once. And then we will likely structure our meeting in the same fashion, unless there are suggestions otherwise. And I'm already thinking about what our feature presentation might be. It might be a presentation from the Iceland folks. I think there was probably enough material from JR's quick overview for a presentation at a future meeting. Are there any other suggestions? You can either shout them out now or put them in the chat, or let Patty or me know, and we will try to bring this material together in a digestible and accessible format for all of you. George.
Yeah, Aaron, several years ago, you led an effort to identify technology needs across a wide range of different fields. I'm wondering if out of this group, there might be some value in identifying, quantified, like, we need the following technology capabilities for these kind of applications in Alaska. And then to share that as almost like a research shaping guidance for national labs, for industry, ideally with Alaskans participating in that, but at least getting people on notice with, hey, look at the application space in Alaska. It just feels to me like that would be a really great partnering thing, smaller scale than the H2 Hub thing that we just talked about, but helping us to understand more than we know internally about what the industry is evolving. And I just be very interested to see your thoughts on that. I know it's a lot of work, much herding of cats, lots of I dotting and T crossing. But do you think something like that would be doable?
I think it's a very interesting idea. And my first reaction is that I wonder if it could be folded into a roadmap process.
Exactly.
So I think that might be something for our roadmap committee to take up. And again, for any who are interested, that roadmap committee is meeting again this Friday. So let us know if you're interested in joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, George. Any other presentation topics, please put them in the chat or reach out to me and Patty. I think we definitely have some ideas for the February meeting that we can work with for now. And then at some point in the future, yes, it would be great to do an in-person event. I don't have my wits about me to plan that right now, but maybe after the holidays, we'll get serious about planning something like that. So again,
just shout out a bar and a time.
Okay, I might just put you on that task, JR. So, all right. Are there any other announcements for the good of the group here before we bring this to a close? I see your comment there, George, about Arctic Encounter, and we'll fold that into our considerations here. All right, well, thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you soon. Have a wonderful holiday season.